Hey guys, Cameron with CBM Reviews here, and this is going to be a video talking about Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm not going to do a spoiler review, but you do not need to keep watching if you have not seen Spider-Man Far From Home yet. I highly advise you go watch the movie. It's a load of fun, but there are some things that I want to talk about how it influences the upcoming Phase 4 of the MCU, and we're about to get started. Before I get on these points, I just want to thank you for clicking on the video. I know you had a lot of options. I appreciate you choosing me. If you're a fan of this sort of thing, like comic book movie reviews, TV reviews, or even con footage, click that subscribe button. And if you want to know as soon as I put anything up on the channel, click that notification bell. You'll know as soon as a video goes up. So I wanted to talk about 4 things that are going to be influenced from just the mid and the post-credit scene in Spider-Man Far From Home. But before I get there, I just want to give a nod of sorts to the MCU, Kevin Feige in particular, on how they have been revolutionizing the Spider-Man villains. And I'm not talking about how they're doing something new with their powers or things like that, but just think about it. They are basing the Spider-Man villains' motivations on things that have happened in previous movies. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Adrian Toomes is influenced by the events that happened in the Avengers, where New York City has undergone quite a bit of destruction from the fight, and even though his crew is supposed to be the ones to clean it up, they get blocked out by none other than Tony Stark. So he starts gathering up this technology, scavenging for it if you will, and then repurposing it as weapons and selling it on the black market. Now in this movie you have Mysterio, whose real name is Quentin Beck. His motivations are also against Tony Stark because Quentin was the one who developed the BARF technology that we first saw in Captain America Civil War. He was subsequently fired for being too unstable, and now he is the dastardly Mysterio, creating all of these illusions that he fights and then he becomes the hero. Syndrome much? I'm not here to talk about the villains, even though I wanted to say I appreciate the depth that Kevin has gone to give us some backstory so that we're somewhat invested in these other characters. That makes the villains better when we're invested in their motivations. But I'm here to talk about 4 things that are going to change in the future based on the mid and the post-credit scene. And I want to start at the last one and then work my way back. So the last thing that we see is the fact that Nick Fury has been in space. He's been on this satellite in space, and it's pretty much been run by the Skrulls. And what this is it's an introduction to S.W.O.R.D. If you're not sure what S.W.O.R.D. is, it's kind of like the outer space version of S.H.I.E.L.D., where S.H.I.E.L.D. is just based on Earth. S.W.O.R.D. is more of an intergalactic thing, almost like a Men in Black of MCU. They deal with intergalactic threats and that sort of thing. It was first introduced in Astonishing X-Men #6, and so we have our actual second reference to the X-Men, the first one of course being Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, which I want to note that perhaps they are actually mutants and they weren't created from the Infinity Stone, but maybe they just had to be vague about it because they knew what was going to happen in the future. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section. In any case, now we see that Nick Fury is over another organization, and this time it looks like they're going to be going into the cosmos. Nick Fury in space. The second thing I want to talk about is also a post-credit scene, but this is something that we all were thinking was going to happen in a movie earlier this year, which was Captain Marvel. You'll see in a post-credit scene that Maria Hill and Nick Fury were actually Skrulls this entire movie. They were posing as Nick and Maria, and I'm pretty sure they had permission to because they contacted Nick right after everything kind of settles down. So now that Nick knows that things kind of went upside down, but now we know that Skrulls have been posing as humans, which might start setting off the secret invasion. And this wasn't just any Skrull, but this was Talos, the main Skrull that we saw in Captain Marvel. I don't know exactly exactly why they went ahead and used him. I am glad they did. But maybe there's going to be a renegade faction of Skrulls that decide to peace off and then they want to take over the Earth, and that way they have a secret invasion. I had completely written off the secret invasion as a possible story point after Captain Marvel, but now with the post-credit scene that we saw here, it's back on the table, baby. The third thing that I want to talk about is that Spider-Man's secret identity was ratted out. And so now the entire world knows that Peter Parker is in fact Spider-Man, and the implications that that may bring is huge. Throughout this entire movie, there have been slight nods that Peter Parker was going to grow into the next Tony Stark, with Peter getting the Edict glasses, with Peter constructing his own suit, with listening to the same music. As you saw in the first Iron Man, there were a lot of nods from the very first Marvel movie to the very latest Marvel movie, and it kind of seemed to show that Peter was going to grow into the next Tony Stark, except for the fact that Tony outed himself as Iron Man, but somebody else outed Peter as Spider-Man. This could really pose a huge problem if the Marvel Cinematic Universe creates a version of the Sinister Six. And think about it, they're almost there. We had Matt Gargan introduced, so there's your Scorpion. We had Herman Schultz as the Shocker. We have Adrian Toomes as the Vulture, and I don't think that Mysterio is actually dead, so there's your Quentin Beck as Mysterio. We only need 2 more, and I mean, you got your Doc Ock that we haven't introduced yet. My personal opinion for the best Spider-Man villain out there, and please, can we finally get Kraven the Hunter on the big screen? But this leads me to my most exciting thing that I wanted to talk about. In the mid-credit scene, there was a breaking news bulletin, and who shows up to break this bulletin? None other than J. Jonah Jameson. But not just any J. Jonah Jameson. We got J.K. Simmons returning as J. Jonah Jameson. And even though this was exciting and this was fan service, there was something that was very important about this J. Jonah Jameson. If you knew what J.K. Simmons looked like, just regular, he's bald, he's got no hair, that's fine. And they gave him a balding haircut, so he's got some stuff on the side, he's got nothing up top, which is not your traditional J. Jonah Jameson look. Traditionally, J. Jonah Jameson has quite a bit of hair up there, it's kind of like a flat top. And this is why it's important. This particular universe's version of JJ has that kind of hairstyle, and he works in a news organization. So what's not to say that a different version of J. Jonah Jameson exists where he does have that flat top hairstyle, and that Spider-Man is Tobey Maguire. And they talked about multiverses earlier in the movie, but it was all a fake story. But what if they actually are real, and there's a way that the universes converge so that we have not just one Spider-Man on screen, but all 3. And the J. Jonah Jamesons can kind of get together and have this conglomerate of... I don't care about that. Essentially, what I'm saying is that the different hairstyles of J.K. Simmons has given a clear indication that different universes exist in this MCU, and that quite possibly the very first Spider-Man movies that were directed by Sam Raimi could be Marvel Cinematic Universe canon. That is just a theory though, because I could be reading too much into it. Maybe they didn't want to give him the flat top haircut. I don't know, but I think that those were 2 different J. Jonah Jamesons in 2 different universes, and that the possibility of the universes converging, or maybe one Spider-Man going to a different universe, is totally possible. Me personally, I'd love to see Tobey and Andrew and Tom all on the same screen. Fighting what threat? I don't know. But the fact that we saw J. Jonah Jameson on screen gives me hope that we'll see a Spider-Verse in the live-action MCU. But those were my opinions about the post-credit scenes, as well as my nod to the Spider-Man villains that we've seen in the MCU. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, and if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends, and as always, this is Cameron with CBM Reviews. We'll see you next time.